Ready? Call public hearing. Belton will hold a public hearing on the proposed annual budget for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2025 and ending March 31st, 2026. Anybody in the public would like to come up and speak about the budget, feel free, come to the microphone, state your name and address, and give us your 2 cents worth. Hearing and seeing none, close the public hearing. Come to close. During public hearing. City call meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. Councilmember White.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Larkey. Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Pryan.
Here.
Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
I have a quorum. I have personal appearances. Number 1, Dr. Underwood, Belton School District Superintendent.
Good evening. Thank you guys for allowing me an opportunity to speak to the City Council. Real quick, just want to highlight a ballot issue that we have on for April 8th with the school district. It is a no tax increase. I'll say that first. Levy transfer, just briefly explain the situation. For us to move funds from one fund to another, the state of Missouri requires us to go to a vote of the people and get permission to do that. And so what we are looking to do is transfer 30 cents out of our debt service where we pay for items such as, I say, buildings and buses, so large ticket items, but we cannot utilize it for any other opportunity. We have been aggressive in paying down some of our debt at the school district, which has freed up some of our funds in that levy, which would allow us to move it into our Fund 1, which is our operating that we can use for salary and benefits. We just mailed out a flyer, in essence, to the community to try to help provide information, highlighting that. Our phrase has been recruitment is our new retention. And so we want to try to keep people, or I should say retention is our new recruitment. We can say it either way, but nonetheless, we want to keep the people that we have, pay them well, but then we also want to recruit new people as well to the district. And so we're working to try to do both. This 30 cents will allow us to use it towards salary and benefits, and so that's what we're dedicating this toward. And so obviously I'm looking for a vote of yes. It is a 50+1 in regards to 50%. +1 is approval on this initiative. And so I would point out the ballot language is rather lengthy. So I would hope to ask everyone to read the entire ballot wording. At the beginning, it'll talk about, in essence, us increasing our operating levy by 30 cents, but then you'll also see that we're going to decrease our debt service also by 30 cents as well. So therefore, the overall levy will remain the same. It will remain unchanged. So I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to this. I would also like to point out that we do have a group, Friends for Education. Ms. Connie Hubbard has helped really lead that. So you should see some vote yes signs coming out. I know there's some out there already. And as a matter of fact, if anyone's interested in one, just contact me or my assistant, Ms. Teresa Stockings here. We can make sure and get you guys one as well. One last thing I will mention before I would be happy to take any questions. I do have a flyer we'll leave out here on the table if anyone's interested in seeing this information further. So I want to thank you guys for the time and be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Before we go to the next item, Mr. Mayor, I've had a request if you'll please turn on your mic because they can't hear you on the video.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Thought I had it on. Man. All right, item 2, Car Crew Street Closure, Fraternal Order of Eagles.
How y'all doing this evening? Thank you for taking the time to listen. I am Kurt. I am representing the Fraternal Order Eagles. About the cruise nights on Main Street that's been going on for 20-plus years. Last year, mid-year, late year, we were approached by Belton Parks, asked if we wanted to take it over. We asked them questions. The contact that we had that we were talking to gave us every bit of information that she had. We announced November, December that we were going to do it. January, they made it public on Facebook that the Fraternal Order Eagles was going to take over the cruise nights. I met with Andrea up here because I had to fill out the form, pick the dates, all that, and she asked me about insurance and a contingency plan for the roadway. So I said, I don't know, I need to look into that. I left and went and called our contact that asked us to take it over, and she did not know the answers to that. So we looked into the insurance. The Fraternal Order Eagles, we are a charity organization. We work off of we raise money for local charities. Our insurance for the cruise nights was going to be about between $5,000 and $6,000. The contingency plans for the street closures, day of operation people to work here is about $325, $350 per Saturday that we do the cruise night. So the head trustee at the Fraternal Order Eagles has been talking to Andrea, and they kind of worked for us to come propose to ask the city to take the insurance on, and then we would accrue the other costs of the closures and all the barriers needed for the road closures and running the operation that day. So that's what we are asking for. I don't know all the details of the insurance. I just know it was going to be about $5,000 to $6,000. And like I said, as a charity organization, we cannot accrue that. We want to keep the cruise night going. We understand Parks wants to give it up, so we're trying to come to a happy medium to keep it up. Because the worst thing we need is on the fourth Saturday of the month for these guys just to start showing up out here with their cars and nothing be in place. Any questions?
Any questions?
I have kind of an odd question. I was in the food and alcohol business many years, and I had an umbrella policy that would have covered something like that. Have you looked into it that way?
Yes, Jeff called our insurance guy and looked at it, and because of our, I want to say, nonprofit means of doing things, because we are nonprofit, the insurance, and that was just to cover the insurance for the day of, and the day of this, I think there's April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Six cruises was going to be that much to add to our insurance for just those 6 days. So Jeff's like, we can't accrue that. We don't make enough money. So he said, well, maybe, and Andrea is the one that came up with maybe we can see if the city would cover the insurance. I don't know how it was done before. The lady that asked us to take it over didn't know how it was done before. So I don't know what the insurance would entail.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, this is what is in the agenda packet that we are that discuss later, is that correct? He's just speaking now to make sure that we understand it. This isn't different from what's in the agenda packet. Is that correct?
The item later on in the agenda packet is a resolution approving the street closure. It's just in reference to the street closure.
So that does not, okay, so this is an additional ask.
Yes.
There's not an item on the agenda for this specific ask.
Okay.
No, 'cause we couldn't ask for the street closure dates to get approved with the contingency plan until we found out about the insurance. One thing I was told by Andrea is when they gave it to us or asked us to take it over, it went from a city event to a private event because we are a private club. There was just a lot of things that our point of contact didn't know, and she worked the event for years, but as a worker, you sometimes don't know what the higher-ups do.
This is a question for Joe. Do we have precedent with events put on by non-city orgs where we support them in this way?
Yes, this wouldn't be unprecedented.
Okay. Good to hear. I would like to support you guys in that way. I'll just say that. And I have one question for you. Is there a reason the October car cruise is not planned? I know it's really fun for kids to dress up and some folks dress up their cars. Just a general question.
They told me to pick dates for September. If we get this approved, I'd gladly take it into October.
Okay.
And do something, try to do something around the end for the, turn it into a cruise night and a trunk or treat.
It's fun to give out candy that way too. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So there is no thing on the agenda to vote on this particular aspect, okay?
Something we'd have to bring back if you guys want to.
Does anybody know what the parks, how they did do the insurance last year?
Parks is a city department, so it falls under the city's property and liability insurance.
Do you know what the cost would be for the city to do this?
Well, we have an umbrella coverage, so it would just be added liability to our existing coverage. So I don't know that there'd be a specific extra cost, but we would take on the liability if something were to occur.
Okay.
which I don't know if anything's occurred at any of these car shows in the past 10, 15 years.
I don't think there has, but it's always that first time.
There's always the first.
Yeah, I'm knocking on wood.
Go ahead.
I'd hate to see it go to, because I feel like we should be able to provide that service. We, for an example, we did the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I know I was told it was a city event, but yet, to me, it didn't seem, because we didn't take a vote to allow that. So I'd hate to see the car cruise go away.
Right.
Sorry,
ahead.
I just want
Go
to make
ahead.
sure I'm understanding. Is this for us to take on that liability or us to help pay for insurance? So I guess I want to make sure I understand the ask there.
Well, since we have umbrella coverage, then most likely it would fall under the terms of our existing coverage. And so essentially there wouldn't be a rate increase or change unless something happened and we had a claim, and then it would affect our future rates, and that's how
Okay,
it'd be affected.
thank you.
Anybody else?
I mean, I'd be for supporting this too, if we can, so.
All right, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Item 3, Carried Nation Day street closure, Parks Department.
Hi. I'm Vanda Meehan with the Park Department. I believe you have everything in your packet. All I'm here tonight is to ask for your consideration for the street closure. It's no different than last year, other than we are moving the stage slightly, which would then result in closing the 500 block. It's still the same two-day event as it was last year, the 30th and 31st of May as it falls, but all else is the same. So we appreciate your consideration.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, Cinco de Mayo and Fall Festival street closures, downtown Belton, Main Street Incorporated.
I'm Connie Hubbard, and we are Treasurer DBMSI. We're asking for road closure for Cinco de Mayo and for Fall Festival. Both will be one-day events, and yes, we will have insurance, and we're in the process of getting Andrea copies of our insurance policy. So it would be Saturday, May the 3rd, and September the 13th on a Saturday also. On the Saturday, the 13th, we're asking that the street be closed down at 6 o'clock on Friday evening for people to set up if they want to, instead of having to come early the next morning. So that's what we've got.
Any questions?
sorry.
No, you're fine.
Everything's the same as
No,
last year,
yeah.
except we're down to 1 day for the actual festival for Fall Festival.
All right, thank you. All right, G, unfinished business. One, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2025-12.
An ordinance adopting the proposed fiscal year 2026 city budget as revised and appropriating funds from the revenues of the city.
Present.
Second.
A motion is second. You're up.
Okay, I just have a couple of changes to make to the budget. I was able to get all of the department heads to send me their rollovers from FY '25 to FY '26, so that we're not amending the budget after we approve it in April. So I have just brought a couple slides to show you what we are rolling over from '25 to '26. So I'll run through those real quick for you. In general fund, we have a total of 305,789, with some HVAC, some repairs to the annex, some PD, the PD's got a couple of things on there. So yeah, a total of 305,789 for general fund.
So just to be clear, this is
Yes.
stuff we approved last year that
That's
we're
correct.
rolling over this year because it didn't get finished.
That is correct. Some of them are whole amounts, and some of them, like jail building repairs, I think we had 80,000 in the budget, so we've got 61 left to finish up those repairs. Street fund, a total of 346,688. Wastewater, 1.9. Water, 161.
Trucks, is that just because they can't be found right now, or,
They have not been delivered.
okay.
Parks, 378,666. And then golf is 361,500, total all funds, 3.46. I do want to point out the golf carts, we did amend the budget for FY '25 to purchase them. They're not here, so we're rolling that amendment over to FY '26. Any questions? Yes.
I'll just say bummer about the carts, since we had tried to move that along specifically to avoid this problem.
Well, we actually did and didn't, so they went through a redesign, so there were some problems with some of the castings that they had in their new design, and so we could have gotten the old cart here on time, but we were opting for the new design of the golf cart, and so thus put us into a little bit of delay. But it still got our order in, so if we would have waited until the budget actually was approved, we would be looking at late fall. We probably would miss the entire season of the golf cart. So we did accomplish some things by doing the amendment, so.
Great. I have a wastewater question. I believe when I was looking at that, we have already approved, well, at least I see two things on there I think we've already approved. So this was just, we're waiting for something to get those done.
Yeah, we haven't expensed these items yet.
And it was, because I remember them fairly recently that we were talking about them. Okay.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I have a question for our esteemed attorney. Do we need to amend this motion now to include the rollover?
No, because the budget as currently presented in the packet includes this rollover.
That's what I thought.
Anybody else? You done?
I'm done.
All right, hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Yes.
Richardson?
Aye.
McCallum?
Aye.
Thompson?
Yes.
White?
Aye.
Mayor Larky?
Yes.
Pryan?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 2, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2025-13.
An ordinance amending sections 42-36, rates inside the city, 42-39, rates for water consumed outside city, 42-296, sewer system user rates of the Unified Development Code of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
A motion is second. Any more discussion or anything?
Yeah, obviously nothing has changed, Mr. Mayor and Council, on this from previous discussions in both the work session and first reading, so be glad to stand for any questions.
Anybody? Hearing none, roll call?
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Richardson.
Oh,
Aye.
motion carries.
It's all yours. I'll wait till you leave this time. Motion approving the final reading of Bill 2025-14.
An ordinance authorizing a salary adjustment for the mayor of the city of Belton effective April 15, 2025.
Present.
Second.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, again, this is another item that we've discussed twice before now with the work session and the first reading. Glad to answer any questions if there's any new information, new clarifications needed.
Go ahead, Councilman White.
So are we in discussion?
We are.
Okay. So my esteemed colleague Wanda and I put out on Facebook a video asking for feedback from Ward 4 constituents on their opinion on this, so that would help us determine which direction we want to go. And so I'm ready to vote.
Go ahead.
Can I ask what kind of feedback you got on that? Nothing, no response.
No, well, except one guy said we could take it up to 86,000 if he would do such and such things. So I figured that one probably.
Wow.
And I won't say who that one was because I know him. So I figured that one wouldn't really count. And there was another one that kind of supported that one, so I figured those two don't count.
86 wasn't in the conversation.
Right. I took those as jokes as well.
But no, we had none. We had lots of views. We had lots of views.
Over
But
1,000.
no comments.
Well,
You guys look good on camera, that's why.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry I missed it. I am on a social media break for the most part, so I don't see any of this. However, it does feel like an issue with a lot of context, you know what I mean? You have to understand our charter, kind of the organization of our city, what the intention is. So even though it didn't generate a ton of feedback, I still feel like it's not a huge priority from where I sit. I know Councilmember Richardson said he spoke with residents in Ward 3 that supported it. I haven't had those interactions, so, you know, just food for thought.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, roll call.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Pryan,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
No?
Thompson,
Yes.
Davidson.
No.
Motion passes. I guess it wasn't, he's not coming out.
He may be outside.
It's a good thing we don't do this all the time.
Probably the restaurant.
New business, one, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2025-15.
An ordinance authorizing the redemption of the outstanding general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2013, of the city of Belton, Missouri, and authorizing certain other actions.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up again.
Okay, so a little bit of background on the general obligation Series 2013 bonds. They were passed in April of 2013. We issued 7.67 million. They have a final payment due March 1st of 26, or FY 26 of 1.22 million. By prepaying these, we would save 36,000 in interest. So we are wanting to pay these off April 25th. And so Moody's is the one that has rated this particular bond. And as you know, we've had some delay in our audit. And S&P now does all of the ratings for our bonds, and they have since Moody's did this one in 2013. So about 2 months ago, I got a call from Moody's telling us that this bond was up for review, and they've done it. And because our 24 audit is not complete, we potentially face this rating to be under review. And we don't want that. We want to avoid that. And because that FY 26 payment is in the budget, we would just be paying it off 11 months early. We're asking that you guys approve this with a double reading tonight so that we can go ahead and pay those bonds off early, saving $36,000 in interest. Any questions?
Any question? Go ahead.
Could you repeat the savings again?
$36,000 in interest.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Are we late on our audit? We have been late since 22 was late.
I know, I understand all that, but are we late on 2024?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I thought we were about to be caught up.
Well,
We
we're
are.
we're getting there,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
24 should be wrapping up probably around June, and then we'll roll right into 25 and be caught back up.
Out of curiosity, when should they have had it?
24, we should have, 24 should have been submitted to the state in September.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else?
So again, I'm asking for a double reading to allow us to get this payment off by April 25th, because we do have to give them 30 days' notice.
I guess I'll just mention the double reading piece. It seems like so we've already got this budgeted, we're just moving it forward 11 months, and the double readings to essentially save us some money.
The double reading is because we have to give them 30 days' notice.
Oh, even more reason, okay.
To save us money.
And
And to avoid this bond being under review.
we've been in
Our
communication
rating.
with Moody's, and there's a timeline basically that they would put it under review if we don't have either the audit or have these paid off by a certain timeline. And so we've worked with them. They said, well, if we can get it done in April, then we won't put it under review, and then these go away and there's no issue. So that's why the truncated timeline.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
And just a reminder, we did just have a rating from S&P, and we were doubling negative, so,
Which is what we've been.
yes. Which is good, yes. So, any more questions?
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2025-15.
An ordinance authorizing the redemption of the outstanding general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2013, of the City of Belton, Missouri, and authorizing certain other actions.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Richardson?
Aye.
Thompson?
Yes.
Pryan?
Aye.
Davidson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Lawson?
Aye.
McCallum?
Aye.
Mayor Larkey?
Yes. Motion carries. 2, motion approving resolution 2025-20.
A resolution approving a professional services agreement with Multi-Studio to complete the Unified Development Code update.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before this evening is a professional services agreement with Multi-Studio to complete the Unified Development Code update, which includes the zoning and subdivision regulations as well as the sign code. The contract amount is for $100,000, which has been rolled over to the FY26 budget. If the additional $25,000 in the FY '26 budget is determined to be needed to complete the project, an amended agreement will be brought forward at a later date. At this time, we don't see the need for the additional $25,000, but some examples of where it could show up through the process would be additional funding needed to add additional in-depth analysis or drafting of specific zoning or design issues, additional graphics, and/or additional public engagement. The appendix includes a scope of services with an updated process outlined in 5 phases, which includes multiple opportunities for public engagement through the process. This update is expected to be completed for final approval in summer of 2026, and if approved, we anticipate beginning this process in the next few weeks. Staff recommends approval, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
So it sounds like we're preparing to spend $25,000, even though the bid came in at $100,000, right? I mean, additional, right? The 25 additional, especially since we're a public entity where all of this is out in the open. I'm a little concerned that we're throwing out there like, hey, come sell us on something else. We're going to spend more money.
So we talked through that with Multi-Studio, and right now we're sticking with $100,000 budget. We don't see a need for it. But it's there if something comes up through the process where we feel like there's a need for it. But we're not. We have it budgeted, but it came in under budget.
But couldn't we just do that as a budget amendment at that time if it were to become necessary?
Yeah, we had $125,000 in the budget, and the proposal for the contract came in at 100. So that's where we're at. So it's actually, there's money still in the budget if we need it, but we're potentially saving money here.
Yeah, okay.
I think if it's 25,000, it would have to come back for approval.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we had an increased expense from what we were already approving.
Okay.
Did you just say that it would have to come back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a contract amendment.
Yeah. Anybody else? Go ahead.
This is a several-year process, right? I mean, we'll get what they recommend, then we'll vote on it, and then you will tie it in with the codes we have, or however you do it. So we're looking at several years' worth of time here, correct?
No, so the drafting, the public engagement, and through the drafting process is a roughly 15 to 16-month process. And then it would come for adoption, and then that would be our code. And that would likely be the code that we would utilize for at least 10 to 15 years. Now, we'll amend it like we do now as necessary, but the plan is that this is at least our code that will get us through the next 10, 15 years through the duration of our comp plan.
So a little over a year to have this done, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have one question
Go
real quick.
ahead. Go ahead.
And this is necessary because it saves us time and staff hours and money to do it this way, correct?
Correct. Yeah, with the complexity of the current code, it's essentially, it needs to be completely repealed and replaced with an entirely new code, which we do not have the staff time to be able to do that. This is a team that has 4 different consultants that are working on it, including legal assistance as well, to make sure that they're complying with all local, state, and federal regulations.
And you may have answered this already. When was the last time we had codes updated?
In 2010 was the last time that the code was updated. There's been many chapters of the code that have not had any significant updates since the 1980s.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving resolution 2025-21.
A resolution authorizing and approving the Fraternal Order of Eagles to close a portion of Main Street and surrounding side streets as noted for the 2025 car cruises.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
So I just want to make sure that this is not voting on anything other than the closure. So
Correct.
as far as the money or who's going to do insurance or any of that kind of stuff, that's not involved in this.
Correct. This is just closing the streets on the date that they requested, days that they requested.
Okay.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, motion approving resolution 2025-22.
A resolution authorizing and approving the Belton Park Department to close a portion of Main Street and surrounding side streets as noted for Carry Nation Days 2025.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'll recuse myself.
Item 5, motion approving resolution 2025-23.
A resolution authorizing and approving Downtown Belton Main Street, Inc. to close a portion of Main Street and surrounding side streets as noted for events in 2025.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? You have something?
No, I was saying he seconded
Oh,
first.
okay. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, motion approving resolution 2025-24.
A resolution authorizing and approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Belton, Missouri and Downtown Belton Main Street, Inc. to provide support for 2025 events.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I don't know what a memorandum of understanding is, and after I read through, and this kind of ties into the Eagle stuff too, what does it cost the city to provide these services? I mean, I know that we have to look at the insurance stuff separately, and, I mean, I'm just curious at what it costs us. And, you know, that may not be something that you could answer right now.
Right.
And I'm just curious as the hard numbers of what the memorandum of understanding is, what does it cost the city of Belton?
Yeah, since we've done these so many times in the past, they've kind of just become part of our operating budget at this point. But that said, we could go back and see what it takes for the extra, officers or public works or whatever, that we would have to respond with as part of this MOU. And we could come up with an estimate of what that is, if you're
Well,
interested. I don't have that off the top of my head.
I think it's important because at some point, we're going to have a fee structure, for permits for this. I'm assuming that we'll want to do that.
Well, I'll just, with the complexities that we are starting to get with these events, I think it might make sense, especially, so I was intending to potentially talk about this regarding the Eagles situation, but to understand what that looks like, I'll just say, as, not to be a broken record, but I have talked a lot about festivals and events like this and the great things that it does for a city, growing up somewhere where there was a lot of these types of things going on. And so I have looked into it myself, and I do know that typically cities are going to look at a fee of some type for that type of situation to cover, policing and whatever. But, that seems like something we should consider looking at. I don't know that it necessarily changes. I don't want to say, hey, let's impose something that, to your point, we've been doing this for a while. Let's figure out a plan in the future that makes sense.
Yeah, in the past, the city staff has essentially tried, putting together fee structures and changing the fee structures. I know Andrea spent lots of time on this, and she could probably tell you, how much she's done that over the last couple of years. And sometimes we get to the point where, we agree, and then we find the one-offs, the instances where folks can't afford it, or if the event's not going to take place if we don't, if we decide to do so and stick to the fee structure. And so the only other way, we can go back to something like that, but I suppose the only other way that we could do that and pick and choose which groups have to pay and which groups don't have to pay would be if the council were to approve every single one of them specifically, if that makes any sense. 'Cause if the staff tries to do it based on a fee structure, then we're not being fair in the implementation of the fee structure, if that makes
Well,
sense.
part of my,
But
the
the council
reason,
has appropriation authority, so that you guys pick and choose what you appropriate money to all the time, so you don't have to have that same.
well, just, you know, Joe, we've had this discussion, right, of consistency is going to be key here. So I agree that we need to come up with a consistent plan, and I just, anyways, I think
It's
it's
been
a
attempted a
good
few times,
future
yeah.
potential discussion, given the complexities we're getting here, but for the record, I'm, you know, in favor of this. I don't want to be, I don't want that to be a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I would like in the future, when we bring up some memorandum of understanding that there's some research that brings roughly dollar figure at the time that they bring the memorandum of understanding, especially since we have a long history of doing this. But that way the information is there and we can go, you know, this organization is a nonprofit that has no money, but we want to consider that or whatever.
We can absolutely put a dollar figure to what the added cost is.
Go ahead.
I'll just add what I think is some other helpful context is, yeah, we could have an understanding of what that costs us in staff time and labor. But there's also the value of the economic growth from this. You know, we get more business licenses for food trucks to come to Main Street. We get folks out spending more money. So, you know, the way I look at it is the city has a function to plan events, and that is a job that Parks fills for us oftentimes, but they are limited in how much they can do for that. So when we have these nonprofit groups and volunteers running it, I think city support makes a lot of sense. And on the back end, you know, Placer AI data tells us how many folks come out, and we could look at the increased revenue from these events. And it's not just us appropriating money because the back end benefits are many. So I would just point that out for context in the conversation.
Well, and I would hope in the future we're going to have more festivals, and I think it's an issue that we need to look at as hopefully we increase having the number of festivals. And I totally agree with what Councilperson Lawson is saying and what Councilperson McCallum said. There's a lot of value in these, and it benefits the city, but we just have to make sure that we're weighing everything appropriately. But totally agree that this is an economic driver and we need to support it.
Yeah, I would like more. And so, but I just want to know figures at the same time.
Yeah.
Are you next?
I didn't know she had her hand up.
She did.
Go ahead. You're next. You're next.
I didn't see her hand up.
She did.
I apologize.
Go ahead. Okay. I'm for the festivals and I attend, but I'd like to see the hard numbers too. So, I think that before we roll around again on a calendar year for these things happening, that would be smart.
I don't think it's unreasonable to expect to know what our skin in the game is for
Yeah.
some of these before you approve
I mean,
the
because the
MOUs.
numbers seem to be going up in attendance, which means there's more trash and there's more police and there's more water and there's more whatever. So I would like to just have some numbers for the future stuff.
I think that's reasonable.
So,
I think it's a good idea that we stand behind these festivals. They do bring a lot of people in. The last festival that I heard, a lot of the vendors had sold out. I mean, so that's money coming into us. I just don't know. I mean, if we set up a fee schedule, it's gonna have to be the same for everybody across the board, so. But I still think what they bring in means more than charging, so.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 1, consent agenda. One motion non-debatable to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Communication from City Council, Councilmember Johnson.
I thought the St. Patrick's Day Parade, despite the weather, was very enjoyable. I think we had a good turnout. I think everybody had a great time, and thanks to everybody who organized that and made it turn out as well as it did.
Yeah,
Councilmember
speaking of
McCollum.
events, that was a fun event. I do have a few things, actually I have a number of things to talk about. One of the things I'll just start with is the TDD board. We did meet. There was I've seen questions and a lot of asking still about Mullen Road. So I want to, I know that's been a hot topic, so a couple things. The light posts, that is 100% on Evergy. We don't really have control of that. They will get that done and their schedule when their schedule permits. You may, if you have been down Mullen Road, you'll see the planting has already started, so that's something we're getting taken care of. And then, the cones will come down as soon as the road is striped. And that will happen. I've been told the striping will happen as soon as nighttime temperatures are consistently hitting 50 degrees. So you can hopefully see some movement on that soon. So I just wanted to bring that update. Then I want to give a parks update. The Cleveland Lake restrooms, which we just saw on the budget carryover actually, is out to bid. So hopefully we're going to see progress on that soon. Parks is hiring for several positions, including, lifeguards at the outdoor water park as well as summer camp director. So if you know anybody interested, please share. Parks has always so much going on. So this is not an all-inclusive list, but there's a few upcoming events that I want to point out and mention. March 29th, this weekend, stream cleanup at Wallace Park will take place starting at 9 a.m. And as a reminder, it ends with free hot dogs. So, also March 29th, there will be a princess party for kids 4 to 13. April 5th is the Spring Craft Show from starting at 9 a.m. going to 3. And April 12th is the Easter Egg Scramble, which if you've never been, I highly suggest. It's a lot of fun. Seeing the kids go, and they've got them across the fields, and anyways, it's a lot of fun. And like I said, there's a lot of other events that are up on their website or on Facebook, so just keep updated with that. And then one of the things that I wanted to bring up, given that, before I forget, another thing that I wanted to point out is that no excuses voting has officially opened in Cass County, which means if you are for some reason going to be unable to vote because you can't get out of work on Tuesday, April 8th, you can get out and vote at a different time. You don't have to have a reason like previously with the absentee voting that was already open. Okay, now, being that this is the last council meeting before the election, I also want to take a moment and talk about the fire sales tax because I recall we've had some discussion on that here. And I, anyways, took away that there was some little bit of fuzziness on the sales tax purpose, the history behind it. So I wanted to do some digging, which is exactly what I did. So I got some, what I think is good information that I want to share. First, I want to explain that the creation of the Fire Station 2 was done with the issuance of bonds paid out from the general fund. So this is an important piece to understand that the fire sales tax was not tied to the infrastructure with Fire Station 2. And then the original discussion did start in 2005. And I know that had been previously mentioned, and the voters, and that did fail before the voters. There was a couple reasons why this failed. One of them being that as involved as part of this proposal is they were gonna move Fire Station 1, and the voters were strongly against this. The other reason it failed is that the original proposal was actually not a fire sales tax, but was actually a property tax levy increase. Which the voters also took problem with. So it was brought back the next year as a fire sales tax, which was passed, which is why we have it coming up. And the idea behind that was it's not just on the residents here or the property owners to pay with the property tax. It also on anybody visiting us that partakes in our sales tax. So that's why it was introduced and passed previously. So I want to be clear that the original failure that did take place in 2005 was not actually a sales tax, but it was property tax levy. And I think that's a big difference that I didn't fully understand, and I wanted to understand, and I think it's good to share. So I wanted to clear up some of that haze around that history. I thought that was important to do. Because obviously, we still have a need to staff Fire Station 2, and that's what this comes down to, right? And so that's what this money is doing, it's staffing Fire Station 2, which is why I think it's an important sales tax that we need, so. Okay, that is officially everything. I just wanted to bring all that up, thank you.
I just want to say the St. Patrick's Day Parade went great. The weather was a little chilly, but man, everybody showed up right before, so we had a great turnout. On the Arts Commission, we had, our tunnel is done with the mural that runs on the path that goes under 71 Highway, right by Menards and goes over to the other side there. So everybody get out there and check it out. The mural looks great, really neat. I think it's it's really good for Belton for that. The other thing I was gonna bring up was Belton Cares had the trivia night here, and I forgot to say this last time. So last month, Belton Cares had trivia night. There were quite a few teams there. I think there was only one other person from our city council that had a team. I think that was Patty, wasn't it? How'd you guys, I think you guys did pretty good, didn't you?
Yeah, we were third.
Yeah. Our team came in first, so I would love to see more council members have a team next year. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be much competition for us. I think we'll be good, but I would appreciate more up there, so, and that's all I got.
Councilmember McCallum, two of the things you brought up I wanted to piggyback on. One, for the Easter egg hunt on April 13th. Get there on time. It ends really fast. I just don't want anybody who takes their kids out to be disappointed. It is hours and hours and hours of work for, 45 seconds of madness. So also, thank you for all the context about the fire sales tax. I think that's really important. So just thank you for doing that. And then I will mention that the Old Town Belton Redevelopment Board, we haven't had any new applications in a while. I know the spring is a popular time for folks to sell homes. I've seen some properties on Main Street change hands or, get signs out front. So hopefully folks are still aware of that. And if they have any questions, staff is super helpful and knowledgeable. But hopefully we'll start to see some more applications come through that and see some more investment in our Old Town area. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Grand Marshals, the Mahoneys. I had the honor of picking them up, and it was a very short trip. I can't say where they live, but it was a 40-minute drive, and they talked my ear off, but I enjoyed it very much, heard a lot of old stories, and they are a lovely couple. So my thanks goes out to them. I know they're probably watching, so. And then, yes, please vote yes for the fire tax. We need them. We can't live without them, and I'm all for it being a tax and letting everybody chip in on them, because we do have visitors that use their services. So I think that's the best way to do it. That's all.
I just want to mention, again, vote on April 8th. There's two meet and greet candidate form that's going on April 3rd at 6. Meet me on Main with the chamber. And then this Saturday at 9 a.m. at Terrace, there's another meet and greet. Get out and meet the candidates and see what they're like. Thanks.
Well, once again, High Blue came to the rescue during a lot of GG time. Had granddaughters this week for spring break, and I was able to take them to High Blue and swim them until they were ready to drop. So I appreciate that. The video stuff that Brett and I have been doing, we've been critiqued about our camera angle. We've been critiqued about our lack of content or too much content, but we've had a lot of people look at it. And I think that's a wonderful thing, because we don't typically have a lot of people that come to our ward meetings, but we've had a really significant amount of people that looked at our Facebook pages, and we will adjust our camera angle from now on, obviously. So, but I think it's been worth our time, and I think we're gonna keep it up. I think we'll do this regularly and still have our board meetings, so it's been beneficial for us, I think.
One of our videos was at 1,800 views. So,
Good. I'll leave that alone.
now me?
Yeah, you're up.
Okay. The homeless committee did not meet this month, but we need to begin to look at how to help those citizens who are unhoused and those citizens who are having to deal with the aftermath of the unhoused living in their property. I don't know what the solution is yet, but we will be starting a survey of the unhoused here shortly to find out what all we have to do to encompass everything involved. I haven't told Joe this, so if this is inappropriate, lawyer, just tell me. I will request that the police chief at a city council meeting in the next 2 or 3 do a presentation on what citizens can do or should do if they are having individuals in their problem in their businesses. I do know of one business over on Bell Ray that some people broke their cameras that were outside because they didn't want to be seen. And so this is going to be a hard thing that we have to tackle, but there are citizens too. And, we invest a lot in our citizens, and we need to invest a lot in these citizens too. They're our citizens. They're not coming from New York to come to Belton to be homeless, So I also want to encourage everyone to get out and vote. It doesn't, whoever you vote for, that's who you vote for. The issue is having a voice in the operation of the city. And so I'm going to encourage you all to vote. I guess I'll pass the baton.
All right, I don't have much. Again, the parade was excellent. A lot of people, and like Chris said, they showed up like 5 minutes before start, and it just all filled in, so it was good. I was worried there for a long time, so. And the only other thing I got is get out and vote either now or on April 8th, so that's all I got. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I have a couple of things. One is a reminder about our meetings in April. They have been pushed back because of Election Day being April 8th, which is our second Tuesday, which is typically a council meeting date. The council obviously has pushed back those meetings to the 3rd and 5th Tuesdays for April. We have 5 Tuesdays in April, so that makes it a little convenient to do so. So April 15th will be our first meeting in April, and April 29th will be the second meeting in April. And we've invited Parks to join us at 5:30 for a joint Parks City meeting kind of to precede the regular business meeting of the city for the 29th of April. So that's again at 5:30 p.m. here in the chamber, in the council chambers. Also, I wanted to remind everybody about the My Belton app and the My Belton response tracker that we have. It's very useful. The data we're getting out of that app, it's been up for about 6 months now, is extremely useful. It's very good information. We can literally go into each request made by someone and track how long it took to resolution. We can see, we can go and look at the individual correspondence for that specific request. We can look at the data as a whole and see how well we're responding to different types of requests, depending on whether it's a codes thing or something else. And I just would encourage you as council, if you have folks coming to you and saying, hey, can you help me with this issue? One easy way to help us stay accountable and one way we can track it and we can point to what our response is and how quick that response is coming is if either one, you ask the person that is asking you for that information to either put something in the My Belton, either mybelton.com or the app, the My Belton app, or you yourself are welcome to go in there and do so as well, because when you do that, again, we can go on the back end and say, okay, this took us 1 day to respond or 2 days to respond, or the resolution was done at, at a certain time. And we can use that, one, to hold us accountable. Two, we can use it as a training tool for our staff, so that way if we're not responding appropriately in a certain area, we can say, okay, we're not getting a quick enough response in this specific area, let's address that there. And you guys can go in, or whoever's putting the request in can go in there online and see what's going on, what the latest update is with each issue. And so I just would encourage each of you, we're going to get you guys some business cards printed up that have the My Belton kind of a QR code, so they can get the app, and also point out mybelton.com that you guys can give out to anybody who maybe is a frequent questioner of things or needs help more often than not. And hopefully that can help us improve our level of responsiveness and customer service.
I suggested that we do what he just talked about, the business card, because I can see to where people would think if you just tell them to go do this, they're going to think, oh, you're just brushing them off. So we talked this morning about coming up with a card with everything he talked about. That way you can give it to them. That way it makes you feel like they feel like they're getting something out of it, and that you feel like you're doing something for them. So. And
at our ward meeting with our people that came, they weren't familiar with it at all. So when we were talking about it, they actually were downloading it while we were talking about, because they had several concerns that we said could be addressed better this way. And then you could, and they were very surprised, and they did, and they're young enough that they should have known it, but they didn't. So I don't know how we need to get it out better, but I don't know. I mean, maybe
I think let's just keep at it. We'll keep doing our social media. We can keep, again, if we give you guys the means to spread that, as you guys get these responses or these requests from residents, it's one way either you can give it to them or you can do it yourself. And whether it's a pothole or a code enforcement issue or just a simple question about why we do things or what we can do or what we can't do, those are all simple things that you can throw in that request tracker, and we can get responses to you pretty quickly. We have someone who monitors that consistently. It's essentially the top priority in their position is to monitor that and help us come up with those solutions. So.
All right. Anybody else? Go ahead.
This is way in the weeds, but another potential help is to have everyone in the city that is potentially responding to somebody have that in their signature line, that QR code or a link or something of that nature, because again, it's more visibility.
Sure.
Anybody else? All right, item M, items for review and discussion. Item 1, Holmes Road and 58 Highway right-of-way annexation.
Yep, over the past year, staff has been working on gathering all the required documentation to complete the annexation of the remaining Holmes Road and 58 Highway rights-of-way that are not within the city limits. This includes Holmes Road between 155th Street and 58 Highway, and 58 Highway from Holmes Road east to the CPKC Railroad just west of Prospect. Along these stretches of right-of-way, half-road sections are in the city limits, but others, the other side is not. Leaving unclear jurisdictional boundaries along that 3 mile stretch of right-of-way. A surveyor completed the survey work, and legal description was submitted to MoDOT for review last fall. And since that time, we've been completing the public notification process by notifying and receiving no objection from all jurisdictions within 5 miles of the right-of-way, as well as notifications to all adjacent property owners that are contiguous with the right-of-way. Of those notices sent, only one property owner submitted a letter in opposition. All other letters and responses were positive or neutral to the request. All this documentation was sent to MoDOT back on March 11th for their review. If their committee approves the annexation request, they will sign a petition for annexation and send that back to us for final approval, which includes approval of the voluntary annexation by ordinance as required by state statute.
Go ahead.
If I recall correctly, Holmes is not often plowed, or at least, or even potentially pre-treated with snow and whatnot. If we've taken this over, no?
We are annexing this into the city limits, but similar to other state highways, we are not taking maintenance responsibility of these.
Okay. I know we technically don't take responsibility of certain highways within our city currently that we have helped MoDOT with, I'll just say. So I just another thing to consider as we deal with that issue, because I know we are very generous with our helping when it comes to snow plowing, so.
Anybody else? All right, thank you. Item 2, water line replacement.
For the magic to happen. He's back there hitting buttons. We'll just see what happens here. There we go. So one of everybody's favorite subjects, water lines or water mains and AMI. So as you start looking at this slideshow, you're gonna go, Greg, how come you've got these old looking slides when the city's converted to this great branding and everything that's going on? Well, one of the reasons I did it was because these are the same slides, the beginning of them are the same slides you had back 5 years ago when we were talking about 4 years ago, we were talking about this. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that I was the same thing we talked about, the same thing we're doing, still following the same process, but we have new information with it. And after I go through and show you some of the slides for the water meters, Andrea's going to pass out a handout that's going to have some of the information. But instead of you kind of reading ahead, I thought I'd just wait to the end. That way you have the handouts to take home with you, and you can look at them. So you probably remember some of these slides if you've been with us. We go through and look at all the different types of pipes that we have out there. And originally, it was even before I came here, they talked about how much does it cost to replace all the water lines in the city. And so back in 2019, they came up with this map that showed here's where the water lines are, what are PVC, ductile iron, cast iron, we have asbestos cement lines, and we have HDPE. So HDPE is a plastic pipe, but it's much thinner than PVC. It's actually so thin that if you actually drove across it, some of those lines break. But this kind of lies out where they are and at the cost of those yesteryear dollars. The biggest problem we have out there is cast iron pipes. So cast iron pipes look like this over time. So the pipe in the upper right-hand corner that's looking inside the pipe, they rust from the inside out. So as the water goes through the pipe, the diameter gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And if some of you have gotten calls, and I know you've gotten calls that, hey, my water's yellow or brown, it's because the water sits in the pipe, and as it sits in the pipe, the rust gets into the water, and it transmits to people's homes. So we actually have to go out and flush them. So when we did the first water line replacement, and we're going to see it in the list, was on Belmo. The rust was so thick on that pipe, you could actually take one finger and plug the pipe and stop the water of that neighborhood. That's how much it had rusted. The picture in the bottom left is, we call them soaker hoses. So a lot of the cast iron pipes that are out there have lots of little tiny holes in it. And if you ever use a soaker hose, that's what it looks like. So when we went out in the northeast area and were replacing water lines, we actually were trying to replace them in the same trench like this. So we dig a hole right next to the pipe. We're going to lay the new pipe next to the old pipe. Turned out to be a disaster for us because the old pipes leak like a soaker hose, and it just filled up the pit full of water. The trench was just full of water. We couldn't do any work. And so as you see now, we're actually in the middle of the street replacing water lines at a whole new location to prevent this from happening. Most of our cast iron pipes that are out there are leaking just like this every day. And then when they get so many leaks together, like that picture there, they break, and that's when you see the water coming up through the road. Our cast iron pipes lifespan is somewhere between 50 and 75 years. 50 to 75 years, how long cast iron lasts. Now that's dependent. If it's an acidic soil, it'll go much faster. Depends how they put it in, if they really embedded it correctly. If you remember the pipe that was over here on 2nd Street in Chestnut, it used to break like every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, because they laid it right on top of the rock ledge. And so it broke all the time. When we have those big temperature changes over the last couple of weeks, it went up from 60 degrees to 30 degrees, water lines break, especially when it goes from 50 degrees to 20 degrees. When it gets really wet or really dry, water lines break. There's changes in the pressure that People drive over the lines and they break. So Belton's cast iron was installed between 1940 and 1960. So those lines are now 65 to 85 years old. Most of them are well past their useful life. And that's why if you're right now like living around Lacey Estates, you see us out there every day repairing the lines. We talked about back in the day, why do we want to replace lines? And these are pretty obvious reasons. You don't want to lose fire protection. You don't want to lose water to customers' homes. It affects a lot of things in the way we do things. And so having water lines that are constantly breaking, places that need to shut down, are a problem. In addition to that, there are areas, one of our key area right now, like on Hawthorne, none of the valves work. In order to replace the valve, you have to replace the lines. And so it's never ending. Once you get into it, you got to replace everything. So in that area, when the lines do break, we have to shut off a large area of town just to work on a single street because the valves don't work anymore. We showed a map that showed here's where the lines break, and they break where this cast iron pipe. We have some ductile iron pipe that is old, that is also breaking, but it's mainly these pipes. And so we came up with a map that showed, here's the red pipes that we need to replace. So we broke them down into zones, and we've labeled them for the most important going down. So like Belmont Gardens, we've already done. 2nd Street, we've done. The area of the Northeast Belton, Area 3, that's already been completed. And then if you look between Area 7 and Area 14, that's Hargis Lake. That wasn't actually a water main project. That was a stormwater project. But in order to do the stormwater, if you remember, we replaced the stormwater, we replaced the water lines, we replaced a lot of sewer lines, sanitary sewer lines. We basically replaced everything in the area when we did that job. And then we started looking at what is the cost to do all this type of work. And you look at the yellow ones at the top, that's already been completed. Those 3 jobs are already finished. The next 2 that are really important to us are Hawthorne, Redbud, and Berry. And then Pacific, Lacey, and Prairie. These are the streets that we're on a lot. We were there every week. And then we just list out everything we need, the top priorities where we want to be. But basically 4 through 18 are cast iron lines. Number 19 is our asbestos lines. We're not having as many breaks in that area right now, but eventually that's something we need to get to and get replaced. Turner Road, that's going to be really development driven because when someone goes to work on that undeveloped piece of Turner Road and that property there gets developed, that's when the line will go in. Same thing at Prospect and Holmes. There's a lot of work going on around railroad or potentially in the future. So there's no sense replacing that line. If someone wants to move Prospect, someone wants to do something different out there, that's just when development happens, that's when that line will need to be replaced. So our top priority right now is to remove, I'm sorry.
You kind of glanced over the asbestos line. Why wouldn't that have a higher priority?
Asbestos really is not in any danger or anything for drinking. It's more for the repair for our people. We have to be certified in asbestos repair in order to repair that line. And so it's not really a question of it hurting you. The asbestos line doesn't hurt anybody. Asbestos doesn't hurt anybody if you don't stir it up and get fibers in the air and then you ingest it into your lungs. That's where asbestos gets you. So if you have asbestos tile in your house, if you don't chip it, don't try to shred into the air, you're fine. There's asbestos a lot of places.
So while it's buried, it's safe.
It's safe. It's not.
Okay.
It's not going to hurt you. The asbestos is mainly for our crew, and when they have to go out there and work on it, because when they have to work on it, it does become friable, and so then they have to take all the precautions to work on it. So it's something that eventually we're going to get to and replace, but it's not like any concern for the person using the water.
So since we're on that topic, so you said those ones are, relatively speaking, not doing as poorly as other places, which is why it's lower on the priority list. I understand there's less breaks, et cetera. But is there a different lifespan for those types of lines? Is that part of what's going in here?
Well, that's why they're not breaking as much right now, because they're still in their lifetime, but they will age out, and so we'll have to get to them.
Okay.
But the concern right now, our top concern is the cast iron pipes.
I'm with you. So it's essentially something we need to make sure we don't lose sight of.
Trust me, we're not gonna lose sight of it. It's no different than, not even on our list is the PE pipes. Those plastic pipes are thin-walled pipes, and someday we're gonna have to work on those. But that's gonna be the guys who work for me after I'm long retired. And that's something that someone 15, 20 years now from now is gonna work on. Well, old Greg's not. Replacing the ductile, there's a few runs of ductile iron pipe that are problems. There's one behind South Fork, and if you remember, it's broken twice, and one we almost washed one of the homes away when the line went. It's a 16-inch line, and so when it goes, we only have minutes to get there to shut it off before we empty and drain a water tower. And so it's really important for us to eventually, it's down on our list, but it's important that we get to it and replace it. The cost for this whole group, 4 through 18, is $35 million. The last group that we did, we started in 21, finished in 22. We would also, one of the things about it is we'd use design build for these. And one of the reasons for that is we want to try to do them rapidly. And so we would not be able to design them fast enough to get them out the door to get it done. And so really using a design build, the contractor knows what he needs in the plans to build it. Water lines are not that complicated to do. It just takes time to set up and actually design it and do it. And so it works much better when the contractor is in charge of the whole thing. Then, like I said, the next priorities, like you said, cinnamon trails, get the asbestos pipe out. There's also the water tower that we presented at the beginning of the project. There's 3 crossings underneath I-49 to get water to everybody who lives to the east of I-49. You think, well, that's plenty. That's never going to be a problem. Well, last year, we actually had 2 of the 3 crossings broken at the same time. And so what are the odds all 3 break at the same time? I would say low, but I never want to find that out. So eventually, having a tower on the east side of I-49 is important to be able to supply water on that side. We can actually have 2 zones if we wanted to. And that would, at that time, eliminate the need for this little tower that sits up here in downtown. That's really nothing. I mean, we use it for water supply, but it's, right now, it provides more cell phone coverage than anything else.
Go ahead. Oh.
This might be a long, we might not have an answer to this yet, I understand, but I'm going to ask, is there any place we've identified potentially for that future water tower?
There's 2 places that make the most sense geographically. One would be north of 155th Street, up on top of that hill, north of town. That'd be actually in, I think it's in Grandview that we'd try to do it. The other would be to the east of Kentucky, where the water station is set up right there from KCMO, and that would be in Raymore.
Okay, thanks.
If I remember, when we were discussing this several years ago, wasn't the cost $60 million?
Microphone. Microphone's up. Microphone.
So do I have to say the whole thing over again? So the original cost was $60 million, if I remember right, several years ago, and now you're saying it's 35, but that's just for the zones 4 through 18. If we were to think about the totality, it'd be the $60 million. Is that my understanding?
Correct, except for the portion that we've already done.
Okay.
So right now, we're just trying to focus in on trying to get the cast iron lines out of the ground.
Do you have your, okay, go ahead.
Casey, you're up. Yeah, you can pass those out.
So just a little bit about the history. I think it was in 2019, the voters voted 60 million. You were just talking about that, Councilmember White. In 22 through 23, we actually finished 5.68 million in waterline projects. And in FY26, if you guys remember one of the slides that Greg showed, we've got a couple projects on there for FY26. 5 million is what we're scheduled to do then. And I'm going to talk a little bit about SRF funds. Greg's going to kind of fill in. Yes.
I believe you said 2019, the voters approved 60. Your slide says 2022.
It was 22.
It was 22. I'm sorry.
I just clarifying that.
Thank you so much.
And on the 5 million, I know this is well, actually, this isn't historical, right?
Well, it
This
is historical. We just passed the budget.
As of tonight, it's
Yep,
historical.
it is.
Okay. But it's actually a total of 6 million, correct?
Yes.
Because
We'll get
5
there.
million. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Sorry, I had to jump the gun.
No, you're fine. But 5 million is for water line projects. So, any other questions on this slide? Okay. So SRF funds, that's what we've been talking about, how to finance these. Right now, we've got 3 SRF loans. The rates are 1.35, 1.59, and 1.28. Right now, we've had some communication with DNR. That's who we would get these loans through. Rates are currently as low as 1.5%. I went through and did a couple of amortization schedules. If you guys just remember, we just passed the Series 2025 GO bonds at a rate of 3.6%. The reason we would like to go with SRF, it would be a savings of upwards of 10.7 million over 20 years if we took a loan out for the 35 million. That's a significant amount of savings. Any questions about the SRF funds and how we would use those? One of the great things is we actually wouldn't have to start paying this back till I think we figured 2029 or 2030 once we started the project. So we would continue to build up funds in the capital improvement fund, which is where this payment would come from.
Once the projects are finished, right? You said
Correct.
started.
Yes, finished. Yep.
Okay.
We wouldn't start paying them until 2029 or 2030.
Also wanted to point out that the SRF, we would essentially do all of those projects 4 through 18 as one SRF project. SRF has a pretty substantial application process that the staff has to undertake. And rather than doing those as all separate projects and have all these different separate loans and all the separate applications, they would allow us to put it as one project essentially. And so we'd have all of these as one water main replacement project. And so we would just do the 35 million as one loan, and we could do it over the course of the 3 years or however long it takes us to get those all completed. And like was mentioned, we start repayment as soon as those are completed.
Go ahead.
So the, help me if I make this mistake, sales tax that the citizens voted on, that would end in, that would allow us to start using it to pay the water lines is in 2027?
The sunset was voted, it was taken off.
Right.
Right.
But it was committed to 2026, and then it would be used for this
Right,
after
okay, that's 2026.
2027.
Correct.
So if
Yeah.
we don't start paying till 2030.
Correct.
We're going to have 4 years where we can pay a larger sum?
Well, we're going to get to that as well.
Okay.
Hold on.
These are all great questions, though.
Anybody else, any questions on our SRF stuff? All right, go ahead.
I think it's smart.
One thing about the SRF process, the last sheet in that little packet I gave you has the timeline of what it takes to get an SRF loan. So you're well aware that it takes you about a year plus or minus, depending on the red tape and how sharp your scissors are to get through it. So the next thing I want to talk to you, move to a different subject, is AMI, meter reading. Probably everybody's favorite subject is how do we read meters, right? And so there's a lot of discussion about AMR, AMI, and all these different acronyms. So I just want to go through and explain things and make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. AMR is automatic meter reading. It was something that was created 20 years ago. It's a one-way communication from a meter to the city telling you what it is. The meter sends out basically once an hour a little blip for a half a second, shoots a signal out and tells you what the meter says. And that technology was great. It's basically, its lifespan has ended, and now everything's gone to AMI. AMI is Advanced Metering Infrastructure. So it still sends out a signal once per hour, but if you wanted to find out something in between, you could actually talk to it and do it. It allows for two-way communication to the meter It allows you to turn on and turn off the meter, but it requires additional equipment, which we'll see here in a minute. And you can get extra meter readings by contacting the meter. I just want to make sure everybody understands, no metering system out there gives you real-time meter reads. So you can't sit there and watch your meter on your phone or your device and see it, flip off the switch, and then on your phone you see it immediately stop. There's a delay in what it takes to get it to you. And so I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that, because a lot of people think that AMI allows you to see exactly at this second what's going on. There's a delay in time, because just like everything else, it's going to go from that meter, it's going to get transmitted to a tower, which can go to a company. The company's going to process the data, and then it's going to allow you to see the data. So it takes a little bit of time. It's not long, but it does take some time. So AMI includes water meters, endpoints, switches, and communication of the meter readings. AMI does not include billing or customer interface. The company doesn't supply that. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. So if you remember meter reading in the past, so if you look at the person in the picture on the left, you see the guy with the pad or the lady with a pad and a pen. That's how meter reading was done up to about in the 80s. When you look at it, all these meters look different and had different ways of reading it. So when you go out to read a meter, every one of these reads different. And like the computer one at the bottom, that one takes 3 flashes. It gets 3 different things it shoots at you. So you have to sit there for a while to read the meter. It used to be a guy or gal who would walk around the streets, and in the old days, they'd actually have to open up every meter lid and look in there and tell you what it was. Then they got really advanced, and they came up with this handheld device. That handheld device then allowed you to just walk past it, and it got the meter read for you. This was basically how we did things in the 80s and beginning of the 90s. Then we got really sophisticated. Here's our truck. It had 2 antennas on it. We would drive by and be able to read the meters. This is where our technology stopped. This is our truck. I took the picture of it just 2 days ago. This is the exact way we are still doing it. Well, how they did it in, say, 1990. Technology went forward. When I worked in Kansas City, we had a wave system. You hooked these basically Wi-Fi to every pole, light pole across the city, and you collected data from everybody's house. It worked great, but it went from light pole to light pole to light pole. So if one pole went down, everything that was behind it in the system went dark. And so you had one person who literally was a Wi-Fi technology person who went around and replaced these things and worked on them every single day to try to keep the system running. Since that didn't work very well, they went to towers. And so they had an RF signal that went from the ground to towers that you run around, and that worked much better. However, the towers had issues, and as trees grew, you had more line of sight problems because you still had to be able to basically stand on your water meter and see that tower in order to make it work. And so it had limitations. So now they went cellular. Now this is kind of a joke picture up here because we don't do that. But, you know, you've seen water towers that had 15 different receivers on them. So now they go from the water meter through a cellular connection to the company in order to get the signal through. So this is what goes inside your water meter pit. So in the upper left is your water meter. That's just a water meter. They come and look different than they do. All water meters now don't have any moving parts. So all water meters in the past all had something in there that spun. So as the water went through, they spun, and people used to think, hey, I can put a magnet on top of the water meter and make it run slower, and that may or may not have worked. And I'm not going to say. And to get it, well, with these meters, they're just watching the water, and they're much more effective, and they don't lose measuring over time. The thing next to it is a small communication device. It sends out a signal through the endpoint at the bottom. That, if you ever looked at the top of your meter, you have a small round hole in it that's got this endpoint in it. It's what sends the signal out. And then it goes to this box. This box is about 1 foot wide and about 2 feet tall. That's put up on a tower, and it receives the signals. And then that is transmitted to the company. The only thing I don't show here is a picture of the switch. Switch is basically the same switch you have today. It just has, you can have it that it has an electronic motor to it that makes it turn and makes the valve turn off. So you can turn the water off to a house or turn it on. But these are the devices that are in there. So in order to make this work, the meter and the communication device both have batteries. This is just your your circuit board. And those two purple things are batteries. And next to it's always a capacitor. I can go through electronics if you want someday. But this is in the meter pit, which is underground. So in order to make that live, these are encapsulated in this material, and I can't really explain what the material is. It's kind of like a clay material, which restricts water from getting to it. Because if it didn't, all this would rust out and die in less than a year. So the point I'm trying to make is that the batteries are the key to this operation. Batteries last somewhere between 15 and 20 years. When the batteries go out, the only thing you can do is pull this out and replace it. You have to replace the meter, replace the communication device. There is no going in there and slipping into new batteries because you can't cut it open and do it. Because once it's opened, it's done in the ground. It has to be perfectly sealed. So this system is just like our current meters. Our current meters last about 15 years, and then they rapidly decline in their efficiency to grab readings. Just so everybody knows, a meter never goes and increases the amount of water that you're getting. The meter readings don't go up over time. They always diminish and go down. So after 20 years, normally a meter gets to about 10% lower than what you're actually using. And so one of the tricks that some towns use is that they'll wait a while, they'll do their meter replacement program by increasing your flow and your rates. And so all of a sudden everybody's bill goes up 10% because you got a new meter. And that difference is what pays for the program. I can tell you right now, we have taken many of our meters out and tested them for accuracy, and they're all reading between 98 and 99% of what your actual reading is. So when we replace meters, I'm not anticipating any increase, maybe 1 or 2% increase in what your usage is. In 2023, toward the end of the year, we went and I actually made a presentation. We talked about going to an AMI system. We received 2 proposals. One of them was incomplete. All they did was offer a meter. They didn't talk about how they're going to install it, how they're going to do it, or anything. And we did receive one from a company we use who maintains our water tanks right now. Due to cost at that time, we paused the program. But now we went back and I used that same proposal because we never closed it and renegotiated with the company to go to an AMI cellular system. And so they have given us the cost to do it. The cost to do it, there's basically 2 groups. One is the back office, I would call it. So there's 7 antennas that have to be mounted up in the air in order to receive the data from each individual meter. We also have to come up with a billing interface to go with Central Square. There's project management. There's the software that they have, the software, customer portal software that is actually built into Central Square that this company pays for. And they also have to do a meter site survey. They will stick their head into every single meter that we have, or meter pit that we have, to make sure we verify the size and location of every meter. Because, we think we have everything exact, but they're going to order new meters, and so you want to make sure you get how many 3/4, how many 1 inch, how many 1.5 inches. We need to be exact in how many meters are out there. And so they will do all that. That's $733,000. Then we have what goes out in the meter pits. We have the endpoints, which is that antenna plus that communication device. We have all new meters, and then we have the switches that allow you to remotely turn them on and off. That cost is $7.2 million, which is basically an $8 million cost. Now, there is a maintenance fee since we will be sending this to another company, and they will be maintaining it and watching it. It's $1.51 per meter to maintain this. That's a monthly fee, $1.51 per meter per month to do this. And
could you just explain a little what would be included And their maintenance fee, like what kind of maintenance you expect them to do?
So they will maintain the meters and all these devices unless there's an outside problem. So if the meter freezes, that's on us because we determine the height of them, they don't. But if a meter, in the first 10 years, if a meter's batteries run out, they have to go and replace it, they replace it. If a meter's not sending a signal, they go out and make the corrections to the communication device or the endpoint to make it work.
Okay, thanks.
And so it's a overall 15-year plan that they have for us to do this work. Now, do you want to talk about how you plan to? Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
how much is the Cadillac version?
8 million.
8 million, that's the Cadillac version.
So the 2.7 million on here, when Greg talks about switches, and we were having a discussion the other day, without that, we cannot just turn them off from City Hall. So we could opt to not do that 2.7 million, but I think we all think that it's important that we do. And then we also have a 45%
45%.
option. Go ahead.
So one of the things about it, as we go to 2 billing cycles, from 4 billing cycles or 5 billing cycles, is right now I have 4 people that spend 2 days a week turning off and then going back and turning back on as people pay. When we go to 2 billing cycles, is which the direction you guys want to go, it took 1 week, it took 13 of our guys out there 2 days to do that and then 2 days to go back. And so that's actually more people than I have in our water group. So our sewer group was out there doing it too. And so if you consider we're doing that, we're fixing lines, we're doing everything else, getting to the point where we can have a system where we can turn them on and off is the direction we need to head. This is, I mean, you say Cadillac, this is a modern water system, is what we're proposing. Getting rid of these cast iron lines and putting PVC pipe in, having new meters, because our meters are getting to the point they have to be replaced. And so what do we want to do? Do we want to have a good modern system? This is what it's going to take.
And I'll say something about the adjustments that we give. One of my utility supervisor is actually working on a spreadsheet for me to go back over a year to see how many adjustments we've given. Because we don't have, and I know it's not real time, but it's pretty close. Someone will have a leak and they don't know they have a leak and we don't know they have a leak until a month later. Sometimes it's 6 weeks until we know they have some type of a leak. It just depends on when it started. We had a citizen, I think it was last week or the week before, it was over 400,000 gallons of water. And if we had this system in place, we would have caught that. So we're working on coming up with a number of loss over the period of a year. And this is definitely going to save the citizens some money, for sure.
Go ahead.
I would add that I would like to see with that loss, the number with the loss, also the cost of our salary and benefits that we're essentially saving by having that. I think that should be included because that's
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I've done the math, and if, the switch portion of it, like, that's essentially the thing if we're gonna go to this system, we're either gonna have the switches or we're not, right? And so the only, portion of this that is kind of amendable or changeable is that switch portion. Are we gonna give all of them switches automatically, or are we gonna continue to do what we're doing now, which is have the individuals go by and try to do that, which Greg already mentioned, if we go down to 2 billing cycles, is gonna create a whole lot of other issues when it comes to staffing. At $2.7 million, if you consider a 15-year lifespan, that's $180,000 a year, essentially. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I would guess that we're probably wasting that much money per year in water that we're buying from Kansas City that we're having to give adjustments to, because otherwise it would be an unfair bill for the resident to have to pay, if that makes any sense. And so if we have it, if we could know right away to where we lose maybe 1,000 or a couple thousand gallons instead of 400,000 gallons of water, that's gonna drastically cut down on the water that we're paying for that we're not gonna be able to bill for. And so we think that that change should cover, in our estimate, and we'll do the math, we'll make sure you guys see those numbers, but we're guessing that's gonna cover that $2.7 million, so at least make it worth our while in water that we're not wasting.
Yeah, and that was my only point, is if for some reason that doesn't cover it, the salary and benefits might, right? Get us there.
Yeah, and if we're
make it make
close, I
sense.
think the convenience for our customers more than anything is probably gonna be
Well,
worth it. 'Cause then
yeah,
we can
there's
say,
other-
okay,
there's
I've got an issue, can
non-tangible-
you shut it off? Yeah, we're gonna shut it off right away.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Keep going. Oh, sorry.
Hey, how many other cities are using these systems now? Do you know?
Kansas City's been using it for years.
Most cities are, I mean, for AMI itself, everybody's going to it. I mean, we're probably in the back end. We're probably one
behind
of
the
the few
power.
that's,
Okay,
I mean, we're using a system that's probably 40 years old.
gotcha.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we plan to pay for this. Where the extra $7 million isn't in the '26 budget, Greg does have kind of a time frame if we were to go forward with this. We do have $1 million in the '26 budget. The capital improvement sales tax fund does have a cash balance. If this project takes us a year to 18 months, we're looking at, because we don't have to make a payment for the SRF until probably 2029 or 2030, there's going to be probably $2 million in cash in capital improvement, along with the cash balances in water and wastewater. We could potentially borrow from those, capital improvement could, and then pay them back over time, probably 2 or 3 years. So the funds are definitely available, and if we could get this project started potentially in FY '26, which I think is what we might be bringing back to you later on this fiscal year, the funds are definitely there to pay for it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know I wasn't alone in this. I was really confused how that original 8 million number, or whatever it was that we had talked about, suddenly became 1 million, and now I understand it's because it's a longer term plan. So
Right.
thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
So in essence, what you're saying is, since the SRF loans don't have to be paid back until the project's done, we can take that money now and do this instead of waiting until those water line projects are done and do this after.
Yes. And we are, remember, we are transferring some of capital improvement to general fund. We've been doing that for 2 years now, to help pay for capital there, so we don't want to not do that for the next however many years. We have to continue to do that. But there are definitely funds in water and wastewater to borrow from in the meantime, and capital improvement can pay them back. We have the last debt service payment in the capital improvement fund will be in March of '27. So between '27 and 2030, there are no debt service payments that'll be coming out.
From the water perspective, a lot of what, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misremembering, but a lot of what has allowed us to absorb our increased costs there has been our fund balance.
Correct.
Will this change that ability if we put this plan into place?
Our plan was initially to use fund balance if needed to hold off any increases. Our growth has allowed us to maintain, so we haven't really been dipping into the fund balance much because the growth has outpaced what our estimates were, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so, in essence, to answer your question, yeah, we'll be fine on our fund balance long-term on this. If we have to dip into some of it to pay for this, as, you know, for the next 2 to 3 years after the debt service is expired, we've got that capital improvement sales tax coming in. Before we start paying the SRF, we can utilize that to go back to the fund balance to ensure that it stays solvent. Does that make sense?
It
It's a water
does.
project, and this is what we promised was water mains and infrastructure.
Yep, and that makes sense. I understand what you're saying. I guess my concern is just that we have done such a phenomenal job as of late of, not increasing water costs for residents, and I would love to see that continue, and that was where my question was, right?
Right.
If we get to a point where we're projecting that we're gonna start getting to the point where we can no longer take that and have to pass those costs on, we're gonna bring that to your attention and say, hey, we're at the point now where we can't take these anymore, we're gonna have to pass these costs on.
Okay.
And it will come, but it's just a matter of when.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
I
hope-
understand.
it
The hope
will
is that
come.
we get to the point where we're more competitive on our rates with neighboring cities. That's why we haven't passed along these increases the last 3 or 4 years.
Right, I understand. And we've also talked about how that's not a sustainable.
Long term, it's not gonna
Correct.
last forever, correct?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, based upon your riveting presentations, I heard plainly that this system will help us identify when there's leaks, that we don't have to pay as much, or cover as much. So, would you state, in simple language, that this actually could reduce water bills for customers?
Yes, because, so not only does their water go up, but their sewer, because the sewer is based on the water consumption. So we can only adjust so much. And if we can catch these leaks within a day instead of 30 days, absolutely.
Go ahead.
And that's where the automatic switches would come in very handy and benefit the consumer, the citizens. Hey, and they're gone on vacation, we'll just turn the water off.
Exactly. The other thing that's going to be very helpful is that, we've gotten the calls and I've gone out to residents where someone's complaining about high water usage. And you go out there and they have 3 spigots in their house, 3 hoses, and they're wide open for 4 hours during the day. And the kids are out playing, right? And they go, why is my water bill high? Well, now you can be able to look and say, look on your phone and you can see the meter spinning. Look at all the water that's coming out. And you can actually, we'll have to see how we want to set it up. You can set up with alerts to alert you to say, I'm losing a lot of water out of my house. And it could be no leaks. It could just be every spigot in your house is open.
Go ahead.
I know you said that you'll be able to shut these on and off from the switch. Also, will there still be a valve in there that you could shut off?
Yeah,
and
there's
turn on?
still a manual valve that you can switch.
Okay, I was just wondering. Thanks.
Not that residents are allowed to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not
I
that,
knew
not
that- I
that
knew
anybody
that
would
was
do
coming.
that.
Yeah, that's
I knew
an
that was
interesting
coming.
question, Chris.
But
I
can
was
tell you
asking for
this,
both
if-
me and Alex.
One of the things is that we will know when a valve gets turned.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to turn it back?
Does that involve the valve police?
Yes, we'll
coming
be able to
your
turn
house
it back
with-
off.
It'll be off.
Well, I mean, if they turn it off, are you able to turn it back on?
Well, we can.
Good.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, not that I'm asking to turn it, on when it's been shut off from the city. I'm just thinking as a different way, but that's all.
All right. What else?
That is it.
Nice
So
presentation.
I have a SRF question. Since the process is so lengthy and with so much red tape potentially, is there any concern of that failing? Like, at some point through that process that we go, hey, we've been working on this 6 months and we're not gonna make it?
When we originally did it in '22, I submitted for an SRF loan. We actually got on the schedule for the $60 million loan, but because of all the different changes here, we decided not to proceed with that. But for 2 years, we were on their utilization plan to be able to do that. So we just have to get back onto the utilization plan. But then Missouri DNR goes through a lot of red tape of not necessarily getting on the plan, but of environmentalists, of how the construction plans look, how the contract looks. That's where it really hits.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Greg, one more question. This might be in the weeds. Say there was an issue with the meter and someone's water turned on when it shouldn't and they're at home. Would the maintenance plan, like, would they carry liability for that? Would it be the meter companies to cover? Do you get what I'm
If the
saying?
meter accidentally came on,
So we've had issues where mistakenly water wasn't turned off when it should have been, right? At a home under construction, I believe. Should an issue like that arise with these new meters, would the maintenance plan carry liability coverage for that?
So if it fails, essentially, if the
So if
equipment
the
fails.
water's off
There's
for
an
whatever
issue.
reason, and somehow the new thing kicks it on and does $20,000
I
worth of
haven't even
damage to a
considered
house.
that yet, so I'd have to look into that.
All right, that's pretty in the weeds, but I was just thinking like of issues we've
thought.
encountered with,
But we'd also know
manpower.
right away.
The
We'd
big
know in a
thing-
few
Yeah, we
hours.
would know right away, and that was definitely a man-made or woman-made mistake. I don't know that the system just accidentally, I mean, I think we would have to do that from City Hall.
Yeah, but there's always, every system can fail.
Well, you're right, there could
That's
be a
good
glitch
question.
where
It's
it
a good
just
question.
turns
It's
back
worth
on.
checking out.
Yeah,
It's a good question.
I just like them taking maintenance and liability for as much as
sure,
the product allows
Yeah.
and what that would include.
I
Yeah,
agree.
That's a great question.
Anybody else?
Is there any feedback on us pursuing this option then, or, I mean, are we comfortable with,
100% for
Please
pursuing.
do.
Yeah,
This is
go for
for
it.
both the AMI and the meter replacement plan?
Yes.
Or the
So-
main replacement plan?
Yes, with the caveat of, we'd still like to see the numbers.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Well, we'll have to bring it back, this isn't an approval, we'll have to
Right.
bring it back to you
I
for approval.
just
Bring us
wanted to
back
throw that out
to
there.
good plan.
All right.
I think this goes with the spirit of what we voted in '22, and that we start sharing concerns in December.
Especially if we can save $10 million in interest.
Yep. So thank you for hearing us and doing that.
Anybody else? All right, and motion to enter an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1 pertaining to the leasing, purchase, sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2 pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.12, and the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion passes.